Have you ever wondered why some people effortlessly command respect and admiration without ever raising their voices or seeking attention? The answer lies within an ancient philosophy whose secrets are now embraced by successful entrepreneurs, influential leaders, and everyday heroes: Stoicism. In this video, you're about to uncover the powerful Stoic keys that can transform your life by teaching you precisely when to speak and when to maintain silence. Each lesson holds a surprising revelation. Sometimes the most impactful statements are the ones you never utter aloud. By mastering these strategies, you'll learn how to protect your inner peace, build genuine confidence, and quietly outsmart life's most challenging situations. Curious to see how applying these timeless principles can lead you to a life filled with calm clarity and real influence? Stay tuned until the very end. The final lesson might just change everything you thought you knew about strength. And if you enjoy deep, meaningful content that empowers you to grow, don't forget to hit subscribe and join our community dedicated to wisdom growth and personal fulfillment. In a world saturated with constant chatter, digital notifications, and ceaseless demands on our attention, it can be difficult to find the time, space, and clarity to pursue genuine self-improvement. We are continually bombarded by external expectations, family obligations, workplace demands, and social media comparisons, and these stresses can create a sense of persistent agitation. Many of us try to cope by talking through every little detail of our struggles or achievements, believing that if we simply share enough, we will somehow solve our problems. But what if the key to true strength, wisdom, and serenity lies in a more measured approach? What if the best way to navigate life's complexities is by cultivating an inward sense of control and using our words sparingly? That is the essence of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that has guided thinkers, leaders, and ordinary individuals for centuries. Founded on the insights of philosophers like Zeno of Citium, Seneca, Epictetus, and later epitomized by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism teaches us that we should focus on what we can control: our own thoughts, actions, and reactions, and accept with equanimity the multitude of factors we cannot control. More importantly, Stoicism encourages us to develop an internal compass that is not swayed by the fickle opinions and validations of others. In modern times, being stoic is often misconstrued as being emotionless or detached, when in fact it is about recognizing the impermanence and unpredictability of external circumstances and learning to master one's inner self in response. It is not about repressing emotions, but about understanding and guiding them toward a virtuous life. Central to this practice is the deliberate use of speech, knowing when to speak and when silence is more powerful. The wisdom in silence is not about secrecy for deception's sake. Rather, it is about channeling our mental and emotional energy into building resilience, grace, and clarity of purpose. There are 9 key Stoic insights, often referred to here as keys, that demonstrate how careful control of our words and thoughts can grant us an advantage in personal growth and social dynamics. These range from avoiding overt complaints about our hardships to refraining from broadcasting our achievements for validation. They also address why it is crucial to hold back details of our future plans, to guard our weaknesses, and to preserve a sense of sacred solitude. Adopting these principles can transform how you view day-to-day challenges and help you outsmart the very forces, both internal and external, that threaten to unsettle your peace of mind. Outsmarting everybody else might sound like an exercise in superiority, but in Stoic terms, it does not mean lording over others or seeking selfish advantage. Rather, it means cultivating such depth of character that you can move gracefully through a chaotic world, remaining unmoved by trivial distractions and gossip. This approach allows your internal values to steer your actions and decisions without being undermined by toxic noise or the pursuit of empty praise. As we journey through these 9 lessons, you will find that each offers a perspective, a shift, a reminder that the roots of confidence, resilience, and serenity lie within you. In this first part, we will introduce the foundational ideas behind Stoicism, and then delve into the initial 3 keys. These first keys center on understanding the value of not speaking unnecessarily about your challenges, not revealing your intimate secrets indiscriminately, and refraining from proclaiming your achievements in a boastful manner. Each lesson will be unpacked to show why these guarded or measured approaches can protect your peace, enhance your focus, and guide you to a more profound sense of self-worth. Rather than feeling repressed or muted, you may discover a certain freedom in maintaining silence about certain aspects of your life. That freedom stems from an unwavering commitment to personal growth. By not dispersing your energies into external validations, you reinforce an inner wellspring of confidence and calm. We should note, too, that while Stoicism was formulated in a different historical context, one without smartphones, global connectivity, and the rapid communication platforms we now have, the underlying human psychology remains remarkably consistent. People have always dealt with envy, pride, fear, and confusion. The mediums may have changed, but the fundamental human condition has not. The Stoics spoke to universal truths about human nature. Our tendency to dwell on things outside our control, our inclination to blame others for our unhappiness, and our susceptibility to praise or criticism. As you read on, consider how these ancient teachings can be applied in a world overflowing with data and commentary, a world where self-restraint is rarer than ever. Before we move into the specifics of lessons 1 through 3, keep in mind that silence, as it appears in Stoic teachings, is not an end in itself. Silence is a strategy, a discipline, and an exercise in controlling what the Stoics might call our ruling faculty, the mind that decides how we interpret experiences. By consciously choosing when to speak and what to speak about, we train ourselves to remain centered. We also learn to redirect our emotional energy away from fruitless debates, social competitions, or public displays that yield no real benefit for our inner growth. In essence, Stoic silence can be seen as a guardian of the integrity of our inner world. Let us begin by positioning Stoicism in the broader tapestry of life philosophies, especially how it deals with adversity, ambition, and human relationships. Many popular self-help movements encourage open communication and full transparency concepts that do have merit. Talking about challenges, revealing vulnerabilities, sharing achievements, and brainstorming future plans with others can provide emotional support and collective brainstorming. But the Stoics, while not opposed to healthy communication, raise a vital question: are we perhaps oversharing to the detriment of our own resilience and independence? They argue that constant verbal outpouring might dissipate our inner resources, distracting us from productive action. Understanding the Stoic stance thus requires distinguishing between healthy self-expression and mindless venting. Healthy self-expression might involve confiding in a small circle of trusted confidants, reflecting on one's emotional state in a journal, or seeking professional advice where appropriate. Mindless venting, on the other hand, is a form of scattering energy. The more we complain, the more we frame ourselves as powerless or dependent on external sympathy. The Stoic approach would have us acknowledge the existence of difficulties, yes, but also channel our resources, time, focus, emotional energy into direct solutions and acceptance of what we cannot immediately change. Likewise, Stoics caution against oversharing achievements because it can foster arrogance or breed resentment. Furthermore, constantly advertising accomplishments might tether our sense of self-worth to how others perceive us. This can be detrimental to genuine self-confidence, which should ideally be built on the knowledge that we acted in accordance with our principles, not on public applause. It is not that the Stoics discourage celebrating milestones or joys with loved ones. Rather, they encourage a deliberate choice about how, when, and with whom we share. By doing so, we preserve humility and sidestep unnecessary vanity. Additionally, the practice of silence about certain future plans serves as a shield against premature criticism and the self-defeating satisfaction that comes from merely talking about our objectives. Modern psychology supports this notion. Discussing a goal can sometimes trick our minds into a feeling of completion, thereby reducing the urgency to take action. Stoics, consistently advocating for action over words, remind us that the future remains unpredictable. Aligning ourselves with an unpredictable future means accepting that our declared plans might change or be thwarted, and that pivoting gracefully is easier if we have not made public commitments that our ego then feels compelled to defend. The Stoic approach to solitude also ties into this broader principle of measured disclosure. By choosing sacred moments of solitude, we can think deeply, process emotions, and recalibrate our sense of direction without the distorting influence of external voices. This is not a denial of communal living. Stoics were not hermits. They took part in public life, sometimes quite prominently, but they recognized the necessity of withdrawing regularly to maintain a strong and coherent internal world. This interplay between social participation and reflective solitude is evident in the writings of Marcus Aurelius, who, despite being an emperor, frequently wrote to himself in his journals, reminding his own mind to remain anchored in virtue and rational thought. It is within this philosophical backdrop that we will examine the first 3 lessons. Don't talk about your challenges, don't reveal your secrets, and don't talk about your achievements. Each addresses a unique aspect of our speech, what we choose to share when life gets tough, how we protect vulnerable truths about ourselves, and how we manage the pride or temptation to boast associated with accomplishment. While these lessons might sound like calls to hide everything, the real emphasis is on discerning what must be nurtured in silence and what can be shared openly for mutual benefit. Through these lessons, we understand silence as a platform for introspection and mindful action, rather than a mechanism for repressing legitimate emotional needs or refusing help. The first Stoic key, don't talk about your challenges, urges us to examine how we handle adversity in our personal and professional lives. It might sound counterintuitive, especially if we've grown up in cultures or families that encourage verbalizing every difficulty. The point is not to invalidate the importance of seeking guidance or emotional support when genuinely needed, but to highlight that continuously voicing our troubles can sometimes magnify them. The Stoics believe that energy follows focus. Each time we dwell on our problems verbally, especially if we do it repeatedly without seek concrete resolutions, we amplify the weight these problems carry in our minds. This can lead to a sense of powerlessness or victimhood. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, proposed a reframing strategy. Obstacles are not merely obstructions, but are opportunities to hone our character. He wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that the things we label as challenges might actually be catalysts for creativity, resilience, and growth if we change our perspective. Complaining excessively prevents this reframing. It pins our consciousness to the negative aspects of the situation rather than propelling us to formulate a solution or adapt. A practical example would be confronting a major project at work. Perhaps you find the task too large, or you're dealing with difficult teammates. Instead of grumbling about the workload or the personalities involved to anyone who will listen, the Stoic approach suggests we direct that energy inward and ask ourselves, what part of this do I control, and how can I act upon it effectively? In doing so, we guard our mental clarity and approach the problem with a constructive focus. Complaining at length can not only reinforce our own stress, but also spread negativity among colleagues, diminishing morale. Moreover, the Stoics warn that speaking incessantly about our troubles might attract people who thrive on drama or negativity. They could either escalate our sense of helplessness or exploit our vulnerability. By keeping our challenges more private, we learn to rely on our own resourcefulness and the measured advice of a few trusted individuals rather than a wide audience. This approach fosters self-reliance, which is central to Stoic thought. We must emphasize that Stoicism is not about pretending problems do not exist. It is about recognizing that unproductive talk can feed a problem more energy than it deserves. If we do talk about our challenges, the Stoic approach is to speak deliberately with the aim of problem-solving or seeking informed guidance, never just to vent indefinitely. By curtailing casual complaints, we also preserve our own sense of agency. We see ourselves as individuals who respond to setbacks with adaptability, skill, and fortitude, rather than helplessly bemoaning fate. This shift in mindset can drastically change how challenges feel, from burdensome obstacles to opportunities for personal evolution. The second Stoic key, don't reveal your secrets, touches on a theme of discretion and self-preservation. It's all about recognizing that certain personal details, dreams, vulnerabilities, private experiences are best safeguarded rather than announced. Many of us live in a culture that prizes radical openness. We share intimate details of our lives on social media, sometimes even with strangers. Yet Stoicism reminds us that not everyone has our best interests at heart, and more subtly that over-disclosing personal details can make us reliant on external feedback for our sense of identity or worth. Seneca cautioned his readers that the person who openly displays their hidden corners can become vulnerable to betrayal. This might not necessarily be malicious betrayal. It can be the unintended harm caused by gossip, judgment, or ill-informed advice. By preserving a measure of privacy, we maintain a safe space for self-exploration and growth. It's somewhat akin to having a quiet room in your home where you can reflect without interruption. If you invited the entire neighborhood into that room, it would cease to be the sanctuary you need for peace of mind. There's also a psychological dimension to this. When we share intimate information about ourselves, we may find temporary relief or gratification. Someone is listening, offering empathy, but we also relinquish a part of our internal narrative. If you confide certain vulnerabilities to too many people, you risk turning these vulnerabilities into part of a public conversation that you no longer control. Others' interpretations, judgments, or misunderstandings can color your personal truths in ways you might not anticipate. The quiet, Stoic approach allows for selective vulnerability, choosing when, where, and with whom to share aspects of yourself that are sensitive or in the process of formation. On a practical level, consider how often personal secrets like insecurities about our capabilities or regrets about past mistakes are inadvertently used against us in competitive workplaces or fraught social circles. Even among well-meaning acquaintances, repeated exposure to your troubles can lead them to pigeonhole you based on that weakness. By contrast, if you hold these vulnerabilities close and work on them privately, you nurture an environment where your personal evolution is guided by your own discipline rather than shaped by external commentary. Again, this principle is not about shutting people out entirely or fostering duplicity. Stoicism values honesty, sincerity, and collaboration, but it also calls for wisdom in the timing and extent of disclosure. The key here is discretion. If you need assistance or counsel, approach those who have proven themselves worthy of your trust, and even then share only what is necessary for them to guide you. In doing so, you protect your inner sanctum, ensuring that your personal development is not subject to idle chatter or the fluctuations of public opinion. The third Stoic key, don't talk about your achievements, addresses how we manage success and recognition. At first glance, this might seem like a call to deny ourselves the pleasure of celebrating a job well done. But in reality, the Stoics are reminding us that genuine fulfillment comes from the knowledge that we acted in alignment with virtue, not from the applause of onlookers. When we loudly proclaim our triumphs, we risk making our self-esteem dependent on external approval, which is fleeting and beyond our control. Epictetus famously advised that one ought not to explain one's philosophy, but to embody it. Translated into modern terms, this means if you've accomplished something noteworthy, a promotion at work, a personal fitness milestone, a creative breakthrough, let the results speak for themselves. If you habitually brag or showcase every accomplishment, you shift your focus from the intrinsic value of the achievement to its reception by others. This can create a cycle where you chase the next round of applause, rather than the deeper satisfaction of personal mastery or contribution. Silence in this context serves as an act of humility and a reminder to return to the process. Suppose you just ran a marathon. You've trained rigorously for months and finally crossed the finish line. While it's perfectly natural to feel proud and perhaps mention your accomplishment to loved ones, the Stoics warn against turning that pride into ongoing self-promotion. Pride, after all, can quickly morph into hubris, and hubris can lead to stagnation. When we keep quiet about our achievements, we keep ourselves grounded, remembering that each accomplishment is but one step in an ongoing journey of self-improvement. Moreover, broadcasting success can inadvertently stir envy or competition in others. This is not to say that we should tiptoe around others' insecurities, but constant self-praise can alienate people who might otherwise have been supportive allies or collaborators. Stoicism is concerned with creating harmony and acting with justice in social settings. By refraining from boasting, we foster an environment where mutual respect and shared purpose are prioritized over one-upmanship. From a practical standpoint, consider how social media often becomes a platform for flaunting achievements. This can trap us in a cycle of comparison, seeing who garnered more likes or congratulatory comments. The Stoic approach subverts this cycle by removing the external scoreboard. Instead of measuring success through the quantity of public praise, measure it by how much you've grown, how skillful or virtuous you've become, and how well you've aligned with your values. This is a much more stable foundation for self-worth, as it depends on internal consistency rather than external whims. Reflecting on these three lessons together, don't talk about your challenges, don't reveal your secrets, and don't talk about your achievements. We see a common thread: measured speech as a means of preserving energy, clarity, and integrity. When we refrain from excessive complaining, we conserve our focus for real problem solving. When we hold back personal secrets, we maintain a private realm for self-discovery and guard against unnecessary vulnerability. When we refrain from boasting, we keep our humility intact and free ourselves from the tyranny of seeking approval. Yet there is an important caveat. Stoicism, as understood in its historical context, does not demand utter silence or isolation. There is a time for strategic conversation, a time for building alliances, and a time for celebrating with a trusted community. The real emphasis is on discernment. Stoicism invites us to ask, what is my intention in sharing this piece of information? Is it truly necessary or helpful, or am I seeking pity, admiration, or validation? By questioning our motives before we speak, we train ourselves to operate from a place of mindful self-governance rather than reflexive emotional expression. This approach to speech intersects with a larger Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control. We can't control what others think or feel about us, nor can we fully control external circumstances. But we can control how we perceive situations and how we respond to them. By carefully selecting which thoughts and experiences we articulate, we maintain some control over the narrative we cast into the world. We also protect ourselves from emotional turbulence that might arise if we overly entangle our self-worth with external reactions. In practical life, balancing open communication with selective silence can be tricky. We might wonder if we're depriving ourselves of social support by not voicing our hardships, or if we're missing out on genuine connection by not revealing our successes. The Stoic stance is not to neglect social bonds, but to cultivate them wisely. Share your stories with people who have proven themselves empathetic and supportive, and do so in a manner that fosters genuine understanding, not just emotional venting or self-adulation. This way, when you speak, your words carry weight, sincerity, and purpose. As you adopt these guidelines, you may notice a subtle shift in how you carry yourself. Your posture might become more poised. Your conversations may become more impactful as the words you choose to utter are measured and deliberate. You might find that your circle of confidants shrinks, but becomes more meaningful as it comprises those who truly value your shared thoughts. Similarly, you may discover that you feel freer from the invisible chains of expectation. No longer do you need to feed others' curiosity about every facet of your life. This kind of liberation is central to Stoic living. It frees your mind to concentrate on meaningful endeavors, unleashes your creativity, and cements your resilience. With these first 3 lessons explored, we close part 1 of our expanded reflection on Stoic wisdom. The essence of these teachings rests on the conviction that managing our words is a key pillar of self-mastery. By not oversharing our struggles, we prevent our minds from fixating on obstacles. By keeping certain personal matters private, we protect a space where we can grow without interference. By downplaying our achievements, we remain humble and open to further growth. Together, these precepts form a robust foundation for personal resilience and genuine self-confidence. Stoicism transcends mere social etiquette. It is a coherent approach to life that focuses on aligning with virtue, rational thinking, and emotional balance. These 3 lessons are stepping stones toward that larger goal. They help us refine our speech so it becomes not a reflexive vent for our emotions, but a considered instrument of truth and wisdom. By applying these ideas, we begin to navigate the modern world with a more measured pace, reducing the tyranny of others' opinions and discovering a quieter sense of self-assuredness. In the next part, We will build upon this foundation by examining the 4th, 5th, and 6th Stoic keys. Keep your next moves a mystery. Don't talk about others, and don't talk about your good deeds. These lessons extend the theme of strategic silence and delve into how we handle future aspirations, social interactions, and acts of kindness. Each teaching underscores the Stoic commitment to thoughtful action over empty words. Rather than relying on external validation or indulgence in idle chatter, Stoicism points us toward a self-contained strength that is both liberating and empowering. Take a moment now to reflect on how the first 3 lessons may already resonate with your life. Are there circumstances where you find yourself dwelling on challenges out loud more than taking action? Have you ever felt regret after revealing sensitive personal details, realizing too late the trust you placed was misplaced? Or perhaps you've noticed the fleeting satisfaction of boasting soon replaced by a desire for yet more recognition. Identifying these patterns is the first step to applying Stoic insights in a practical, everyday sense. If you find this exploration enlightening or even challenging, that is part of the Stoic journey. Transformation rarely happens overnight. The Stoics themselves acknowledge the difficulty of embodying these virtues consistently. Seneca wrote about the importance of continuous practice, and Marcus Aurelius filled entire notebooks with self-reminders. The key is to keep striving. With each new challenge, each moment of temptation to overshare or seek external applause, we can catch ourselves, pause and remember. Strength, clarity, and contentment are cultivated within. Through patient effort, we may find ourselves living with greater tranquility and wielding a quiet power that is the hallmark of a Stoic's inner fortitude. Having established a solid foundation with the first 3 Stoic keys, centering on why it is wise to avoid speaking excessively about your challenges, secrets, and achievements, we now transition into the middle segment of our journey lessons, 4, 5, and 6. Each of these builds upon the broader principle that our words have significant power, not only over how others perceive us, but also over how we perceive ourselves. When the Stoics caution us to guard our words carefully, they are simultaneously advising us to guard our minds and hearts. By consciously deciding what we speak about, we protect our emotional energies from dispersing in trivial debates, unnecessary disclosures, and vain attempts at validation. Moreover, we maintain a purposeful inner sanctum where ideas can ripen without external interference. The Stoics lived in a time when public standing and reputation were crucial, especially in ancient Greek and Roman societies. Yet they recognized that bowing too readily to public opinion could lead to inner turmoil. It can be easy to forget that Stoic thinkers such as Seneca and Epictetus taught these lessons in a world full of political intrigues, social hierarchies, and public discourse venues not entirely different from the noisy, hyper-connected world we inhabit now. Instead of broadcast television or social media, the ancient world had the form dinner parties in aristocratic circles and the chatter of city life. The contexts may differ, but the human longing for admiration, fear of criticism, and vulnerability to gossip are constants across eras. The teachings remain applicable to modern workplaces, social gatherings, and online interactions, because the psychological underpinnings have never changed. If we look deeper, each lesson so far has challenged us to consider the reasons behind our desire to speak. Are we complaining to gain sympathy, or are we truly seeking a collaborative solution? Are we telling personal secrets because we crave closeness, or are we hoping someone else will take responsibility for our emotional well-being? Do we boast about achievements for inspiration's sake, or is our goal to elicit praise that temporarily boosts a fragile sense of self-worth? The Stoics suggest that the better we understand the motivations behind our words, the more effectively we can decide which words should remain thoughts and which thoughts should remain private. In the next 3 keys, we will delve deeper into these considerations, often from angles that are especially pertinent to social interactions and personal ethics. Key 4, keep your next moves. A mystery speaks to the advantages of strategic silence in goal setting and planning. Key 5, don't talk about others. Avoid gossip reminds us that speaking ill of others usually does more harm to our own character than to the individuals we criticize. Key 6, don't talk about your good deeds, encapsulates the Stoic principle that virtue is its own reward, and that seeking constant applause cheapens the moral worth of our actions. All 3 revolve around an underlying Stoic ideal that quiet, directed effort tends to produce better outcomes than noisy self-exposure. Keeping one's next moves, private fosters undistracted determination while resisting the urge to gossip ensures we focus on our own ethical development rather than meddling in others' affairs. Lastly, performing charitable acts without fanfare places the emphasis on genuine altruism, purifying our intentions. In each case, the lesson underscores how thoughtful restraint in speaking, in revealing our plans, in broadcasting our moral actions, channels our attention to what truly matters, the continuous cultivation of virtue and the mindful navigation of life's complexities. As we journey into these next 3 lessons, bear in mind that silence does not necessarily indicate a lack of empathy or engagement with the world. Indeed, it can represent the highest form of intentional living where every spoken word is charged with clarity and purpose, and every withheld word reflects prudence and humility. The Stoics believed that aligning speech with integrity is a hallmark of wisdom. Through these lessons, we see how the practice of less talk, more substance can dramatically shift our relationships, our reputation, and our self-perception. We also discover that this approach liberates us from endless cycles of external judgment, freeing us to invest our energy into becoming the best versions of ourselves. The 4th Stoic key: keep your next moves. A mystery shines a spotlight on the power of discretion in planning. While modern culture often praises the virtues of collaboration, public goal setting, and social accountability, the Stoics take a more guarded stance. They recognize that oversharing our future plans can dilute the intensity of our commitment and invite unwelcome interference. When Epictetus tells us to first say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do, he implies that the path from intention to action should be safeguarded against unproductive talk. Disclosing your plans too early can lead to several pitfalls, including the possibility that your sense of accomplishment feels partly fulfilled just by announcing your ambitions. From a psychological perspective, verbalizing aspirations can sometimes trick the brain into believing we have already progressed toward that goal. Modern research in behavioral science has confirmed that publicly announcing objectives can offer a premature sense of completeness, making us less driven to do the real work. Keeping plans private helps maintain a level of hunger, a deep-seated drive to execute without the cushion of external applause or doubt. Moreover, it prevents us from being swayed or discouraged by people who might not fully grasp our vision. In a world where social media posts often act as quick updates on everything from career moves to personal goals, the Stoic advice to keep your next moves under wraps can be countercultural, yet it provides a shield against the noise that can derail fledgling or delicate undertakings. This principle applies in everyday life as much as it does to grand ambitions. Consider someone embarking on a weight loss journey. Posting weekly updates or frequently discussing the progress can expose them to ill-informed advice, judgmental scrutiny, or a wave of discouraging comments if progress stalls. By quietly working toward the goal, tracking one's diet, prioritizing exercise, and developing healthier habits, they remain more focused and less emotionally buffeted by public reaction. Then, when they share results, if they choose to do so, it is not out of a need for validation, but possibly to inspire or inform, having already solidified their own self-discipline. Likewise, entrepreneurs or creatives who keep their early-stage projects secret often find they can experiment more freely. Without the pressure to conform to outside opinions or defend their ideas prematurely, they can iterate, fail privately, and pivot without having to justify themselves to a public audience. This fosters a mental environment where the emphasis is on genuine problem-solving rather than showmanship. None of this is to say we must work in absolute isolation. Collaboration can be key to success, and seeking feedback from mentors or experts is often wise. But the Stoic principle implies a careful selection of whom we confide in, and at what stage, ensuring that our nascent ideas remain protected from hasty critique, envy, or the stifling effect of external assumptions. In essence, maintaining an element of mystery around our plans is not about deception. It is about cultivating a personal sphere of creativity, resilience, and determination, free from the crosswinds of social opinion. This sense of protected focus epitomizes the Stoic preference for action over empty talk. Gossip is an age-old social habit deeply woven into the fabric of human interaction. In the modern world, it can spread at lightning speed via online platforms, office chatter, or casual text messages. Yet the Stoics regarded gossip as a destructive diversion, one that erodes the speaker's character and pollutes the community. Lesson 5. Don't talk about others emphasizes the importance of withholding negative commentary and limiting idle speculation about people's affairs. This teaching resonates strongly with Marcus Aurelius's call to waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The reasoning is straightforward yet profound. Focusing on others' flaws or personal dramas detracts from the self-awareness needed for our own moral and emotional growth. Each moment spent criticizing, mocking, or condemning someone else could instead be devoted to introspection or constructive effort. More often than not, gossip is laced with assumptions, half-truths, and a sense of superiority. A toxic combination that can corrode trust and damage social relationships. The Stoics were acutely aware of the dangers in letting ephemeral drama overshadow the pursuit of virtue and wisdom. A crucial distinction here is between harmful gossip and honest dialogue aimed at helping or protecting someone. Stoicism doesn't prohibit speaking of another person altogether. Rather, it warns against idle or malicious talk that serves no higher purpose. If a friend is in trouble and you speak to someone else to gather resources or organize support, that is not gossip. The line is crossed when the discussion devolves into speculation, judgment, or the pursuit of cheap entertainment at someone else's expense. From a psychological standpoint, gossip can sometimes act as a misguided means of bonding. People bond over shared ridicule or shock, temporarily feeling closer to each other because they share a target of criticism. But Stoics argue that this bond is built on shaky ground and unkindness or negativity that undermines the virtues of compassion and empathy. The more we indulge in gossip, the more we train our minds to seek fault in others and neglect our own potential for positive change. Over time, this habit can produce a sense of cynicism and moral complacency, as if mocking someone else's failings exonerates us from addressing our own. There is also a practical aspect. We damage our own reputation and trustworthiness when we gossip. People quickly learn that someone who gossips about others might gossip about them as well. By abstaining from gossip, we cultivate a reputation for discretion and reliability. This fosters a positive environment in personal and professional spheres as colleagues or friends realize they can trust us with sensitive information or honest feedback. Choosing not to gossip can feel like swimming against the current in a culture where sensational stories, rumor mills, and exposés are widely celebrated. However, the Stoic path is not the path of least resistance. It is the path of moral and mental fortitude, making a conscious effort to redirect gossip-laden conversations toward more constructive topics, such as solutions, self-improvement, or empathy, elevates the collective tone of our communities. It also affirms our commitment to living by principle rather than base impulse. Ultimately, refraining from talking about others in a negative, superficial manner liberates us to focus on our own growth and the well-being of those around us, rather than fueling a cycle of judgment and speculation. Few things test our humility like a well-performed good deed. Whether it's offering substantial help to a struggling friend, volunteering in community service, or making a donation to a worthy cause, the natural inclination might be to share the news so others can appreciate and validate our generosity. Yet the Stoics teach us otherwise. In Lesson 6, don't talk about your good deeds, emphasizing that true virtue is self-contained. Seneca famously wrote that the reward for a good deed is to have done it. In other words, the internal fulfillment derived from acting with kindness or compassion is far more valuable than any external applause we might receive. This point is often overlooked in a culture where charitable acts can be turned into photo opportunities or social media posts designed to garner likes. While publicizing good deeds can inspire others, it can also unintentionally shift the focus from the deed's positive impact to the doer's ego. The Stoics maintained that moral acts should flow naturally from a virtuous character, not from a desire for personal glory. When we trumpet our good deeds, we risk turning them into currency for self-promotion, which undermines the genuine spirit of altruism. Imagine someone who quietly but consistently sets aside time each week to mentor at-risk youth, never posting about it online or bragging at social gatherings. This individual, from a Stoic viewpoint, experiences a purer form of satisfaction because they are motivated by genuine concern for others rather than external validation. The deed remains untainted by the pursuit of recognition, and the sense of fulfillment is deep and lasting. Conversely, if one plasters social media with images of charitable acts, they might earn short-term praise, but the deeper virtue can become clouded by vanity. From a relationship-building perspective, silent charity also fosters a sense of authenticity. When people eventually learn of someone's ongoing acts of kindness, they may see it as a testament to that individual's character rather than a display engineered for public consumption. This fosters genuine respect and trust, qualities the Stoics viewed as foundational to harmonious communities. Additionally, it liberates the individual from becoming hooked on the addictive cycle of seeking more praise or recognition to feel validated. Of course, there are instances where openly discussing a charitable deed may serve a larger purpose, raising awareness or generating further resources for a cause. The Stoic approach doesn't necessarily condemn this if the primary motive is truly to help rather than to be admired. It's all about distinguishing between altruistic aims and ego-driven impulses. Being honest with ourselves about why we want to share is crucial. If it's to genuinely amplify a cause that may align with Stoic virtue, If it's primarily to spotlight ourselves, the Stoics would suggest rethinking our approach. In some, practicing modesty in our good deeds not only preserves the purity of our intentions, but also enhances our own sense of inner reward. By making virtue its own prize, we sidestep the fragility of an identity reliant on others' commendations. This deeply Stoic ethos ensures that the act of doing good remains intrinsically fulfilling, unclouded by performance or external fanfare. Taken together, the insights from lessons 4, 5, and 6 weave a powerful message about the nature and purpose of speech in our social existence. Keep your next moves. A mystery protects our nascent goals from premature scrutiny or unnecessary distraction, thereby enabling focused execution. Don't talk about others holds us accountable for steering conversations away from shallow criticism and destructive gossip, thus nurturing a more harmonious social environment and encouraging introspection. Don't talk about your good deeds reminds us that genuine altruism is an internally rewarding act that should not be cheapened by vanity or the need for public admiration. These lessons draw heavily on the broader Stoic concept of virtue, which rests on wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Each key reflects one or more of these cardinal virtues in action. Keeping your plans private, lesson 4, can be seen as a form of wisdom, exercising good judgment about when and how to share. Avoiding gossip, lesson 5, involves justice and temperance, ensuring fairness to others and restraint in speech. Eschewing public displays of one's good deeds, lesson 6, demands both humility, a reflection of temperance and courage, because we resist the lure of external validation. The interplay between these virtues underscores that Stoicism is not a random set of moralistic suggestions, but a coherent life philosophy aimed at fostering inner freedom and ethical integrity. When we see lessons like these in practice, it becomes clear that each measure of self-restraint in speech amplifies our sense of personal agency. We learn that we do not need to broadcast our life story, confirm our worth through achievements, or tear others down to uplift ourselves. Instead, we channel our efforts into living rightly and quietly, letting our virtue radiate through consistent actions rather than grand declarations. One of the challenges in modern society is that social platforms and business cultures often reward, or at least appear to reward, those who are loudest about their plans and accomplishments. Self-promotion, personal branding, and networking can seem necessary for success. Yet Stoic teachings invite us to question the nature of that success. Is it truly success if we must constantly feed the public's appetite for performance, risking burnout and emotional turbulence? If our sense of self depends on likes, shares, or public applause, have we gained real freedom or simply replaced one form of dependency with another? By practicing these 3 lessons, we establish an internal compass, guiding us away from the need to justify ourselves constantly. There is a subtle but profound serenity in not having to prove anything to anyone. Instead of broadcasting our next ambition, we quietly shape it. Instead of dissecting others' flaws, we look inward to refine our own. Instead of shining a spotlight on our moral actions, we do them from a place of sincerity. Ironically, this approach often leads to deeper respect and trust from the people who matter most, precisely because it is grounded in authenticity. Moreover, these lessons are not about isolation or rejecting social ties. On the contrary, meaningful relationships often flourish when they are built on genuine respect and mutual understanding rather than showmanship. Keeping certain things private can make our shared moments with trusted friends more authentic, as those friends are selected carefully rather than arbitrarily. Over time, the quality of our social and professional networks may improve. People who resonate with virtue and sincerity tend to cluster together, forming a supportive environment where genuine connections thrive. Let us also consider the potential pitfalls of misunderstanding or misapplying these principles. Some individuals might read, "Keep your next moves," a mystery, as a license to be secretive or manipulative, hiding intentions that could harm others. That is not Stoicism, which underscores that any action must be filtered through virtue. The aim is not to deceive, but to protect and empower our best intentions. Similarly, "Don't talk about others" does not mean we should never discuss another person if the goal is to help them correct an injustice or seek collaborative support. It simply points out that gossip, slander, and idle criticism rarely serve a noble or constructive purpose. "Don't talk about your good deeds" might also be misconstrued as discouraging community or philanthropic leadership. Sometimes rallying others to a cause does require sharing what we are doing, especially if we want to inspire collective action. The Stoic viewpoint on good deeds, though, focuses on motive. Do we highlight our charity because we genuinely want to expand its impact, or is our underlying motive self-aggrandizement? Learning to tell these motives apart is a key step in integrating Stoic wisdom into our daily decision-making. Moreover, Stoicism does not exist in a vacuum. It often operates alongside other philosophical or religious frameworks that also place high value on moral conduct, humility, and sincerity. For those with strong spiritual or secular humanist convictions, these Stoic lessons can dovetail neatly with broader ethical commitments. Keeping quiet about one's charitable acts, avoiding gossip, and forging ahead with goals without fanfare are approaches that resonate with many moral traditions. This overlap can reinforce the universality of Stoic principles, reminding us that the quest for virtue spans multiple cultural and philosophical boundaries. Yet navigating these concepts in a noisy, digitized world is challenging. How do we remain steadfast in not oversharing our private aspirations when business coaches or social media influencers bombard us with the idea that public accountability is essential for success? How do we refrain from gossip when negative news and sensational exposes generate so many clicks and conversations? And how do we keep from self-advertising our good deeds in a world that often judges worth by visible metrics of success or philanthropy? These questions point to an inherent tension between Stoic silence and the modern culture of constant visibility. The practical Stoic approach is nuanced. We can thoughtfully share certain goals or contributions in contexts where doing so is necessary and beneficial. We might discuss a future project with a mentor who can offer wisdom or gather a team support if the project is communal. We might highlight philanthropic works if it tangibly raises the project's profile and gains it more support or donations. We might weigh in on public discussions if our input can clarify facts and dispel harmful rumors. But in each case, the guiding principle remains the same: focus on virtue, self-awareness, and the genuine advancement of what is good or beneficial, rather than indulging in vanity or idle talk. By consistently returning to that principle, we streamline our interactions, allowing them to serve meaningful ends. Every piece of communication becomes an active choice rather than a reflex. Over time, this fosters an internal state of tranquility, as our sense of identity does not hinge on the ever-shifting currents of external approval or condemnation. In essence, Lessons 4, 5, and 6 equip us with additional layers of protection for our mental and emotional well-being, reinforcing the fortress of character that Stoicism seeks to build within us. Concluding part 2. Let us take a moment to reflect on how these 3 lessons might look in practice and how they synergize with the principles introduced in part 1. Recall that we began with refraining from incessantly talking about our challenges, safeguarding our secrets, and avoiding boastful discussions of our achievements. Now, we've added the dimension of keeping future plans concealed until they are sturdy enough to withstand external scrutiny, abstaining from negative talk about others, and quietly performing good deeds without trumpeting them publicly. Each step refines our use of speech, guiding us to express ourselves more conscientiously and to remain silent when words would serve no constructive end. Together, these 6 keys expand our perspective on the Stoic approach to verbal and social restraint. Rather than seeing silence as a limitation, we see it as a strategic choice that deepens our introspective power, preserves our moral clarity, and protects the integrity of our goals. In a world fraught with sensationalism and overstimulation, the capacity to remain composed and measured in speech becomes a rare virtue, one that can genuinely set us apart. Indeed, these lessons are part of what might be called outsmarting everybody else, not in the sense of cunning trickery, but in cultivating a mental and emotional poise that most people overlook in their rush to be heard. Stoicism, in essence, places a high value on living in harmony with nature and reason. By selecting which aspects of our lives remain unspoken or only shared discreetly, we align ourselves more closely with the wise management of our faculties. We no longer chase ephemeral validation or indulge destructive dialogues. Instead, we harness the power of thoughtful restraint, which fosters an atmosphere of dignity and self-mastery around us. As Seneca wrote, it is the quality of our thoughts that defines us and the measured clarity of our words that reveals that quality to the world or conceals it wisely. Our next and final section, Part 3, will delve into lessons 7, 8, and 9. Don't speak of your weaknesses, nurture your aspirations. In silence and value solitude. Each addresses a different facet of how silence or circumspect sharing can support personal growth. These lessons touch on protecting ourselves from manipulation, safeguarding our most cherished dreams, and creating intentional alone time for reflection. All the while, the Stoic pursuit of virtue, inner peace and rational alignment remains the guiding star. As you continue this journey, it's worthwhile to pause and take stock of how these teachings might be applied in your own context. Perhaps you have certain future goals you've been broadcasting widely. Consider revisiting how and when you share them. Maybe you find yourself drawn into gossip-laden dialogues. Try redirecting the focus toward more constructive subjects. Or you might typically announce your philanthropic acts on social media. Examine whether that truly serves the cause or quietly feeds a desire for recognition. Such exercises in self-examination are precisely what the Stoics advocated, not blind obedience to any set of rules, but a reasoned inquiry into whether our behaviors align with the highest good, both for ourselves and for the communities we inhabit. Having explored these middle keys in detail, we invite you to remain open to the evolution of your communication habits. True transformation seldom happens overnight. It emerges through repeated practice, small daily decisions, and consistent reflection on the outcomes of those decisions. The Stoic path is a lifelong commitment to refine our minds and elevate our moral character, one carefully chosen word or well-placed silence at a time. In this final segment, we turn to lessons 7, 8, and 9, which complete our exploration of Stoic keys designed to outsmart everybody else. By cultivating a disciplined approach to communication and to self-awareness, where the previous 6 lessons taught us to be cautious about discussing challenges, secrets, achievements, future plans, other people's affairs, and our own good deeds. These last 3 draw our focus inward. They invite us to guard our weaknesses, protect our most cherished dreams, and value the stillness that comes from solitude. By integrating all 9 lessons, we create an environment both internal and external, where resilience, clarity, and personal growth can flourish. It's essential to reiterate that outsmarting everybody else in the Stoic sense is less about dominating others and more about mastering our own mind and behavior so effectively that external forces have minimal power to unbalance us. The true competition, if it can be called that, lies in surpassing our former selves, discarding detrimental habits, and refining our characters through continuous practice. Stoicism emphasizes the cultivation of an inner fortress, one that cannot be easily penetrated by gossip, misfortune, or the relentless pursuit of validation. By the end of this entire discussion, you should have a clearer sense of how to build that fortress, brick by brick, word by word, silence by silence. The 3 final keys each tackle specific vulnerabilities. Key 7, Don't Speak of Your Weaknesses, explores why broadcasting our most fragile points can be counterproductive to our growth and mental well-being. Key 8, Nurture. Your aspirations in silence reminds us that our loftiest dreams deserve protection from doubt, cynicism, and even premature congratulations. Key 9, Value. Solitude promotes the idea that carving out intentional private spaces to reflect and recharge is not escapism, but a vital practice for maintaining inner strength and clarity in a tumultuous world. All 3 are underpinned by a recurring Stoic conviction: selective silence can be more fortifying than constant expression. Far from suggesting we hide behind walls of secrecy, Stoicism advises that we selectively disclose information when it best serves, virtue fosters understanding, or leads to constructive action. The impetus to open up about every fleeting thought, vulnerability, or lofty dream can dissipate our ability to stand firm when adversities arise. Furthermore, it can invite external pressures and manipulations that we are not yet prepared to handle. As you read through these final lessons, consider how they might connect with your existing habits. Do you find yourself frequently confiding in people about your insecurities in the hope that they'll offer sympathy or solutions? Do you casually mention your biggest life aspirations in everyday conversation, only to feel deflated by others' skepticism or lack of support? Do you avoid solitude because it feels unproductive or lonely? The Stoic answers to these questions might initially seem to run counter to cultural norms of sharing and connectivity. But if you take them to heart, you might discover an untapped reservoir of personal power and focus. Ultimately, these final Stoic keys add a nuanced layer to the tapestry we've woven across the earlier lessons. They shift the perspective from purely social interactions where we talk or remain silent regarding our challenges, good deeds, or goals, toward a deeper internal realm, how we handle personal frailty, how we shield our grand visions from naysayers, and how we cultivate an internal refuge from the ceaseless demands of everyday life. In doing so, they pave the way for a more authentic, centered mode of living, one that stands resolute amid external turmoil and fleeting social trends. The 7th Stoic key, Don't Speak of Your Weaknesses, addresses a theme that resonates with many modern discussions about vulnerability. Contemporary culture often celebrates openness about personal struggles, viewing it as a path to authenticity and deeper connection. While Stoicism does not dismiss the value of carefully chosen vulnerability, it warns us that indiscriminate broadcasting of our frailties can sometimes do more harm than good. To the Stoics, our weaknesses are like potential breaches in the walls of our inner fortress. If we advertise them too widely, we may invite exploitation, misguided advice, or even pity that can undermine our own sense of agency. Seneca likened a person who shares all their vulnerabilities to a city without walls, exposed to the first wave of invaders. This might sound harsh, but it is rooted in a practical understanding of human nature. Not everyone who learns of our weaknesses will use that information constructively. Some people might seek to manipulate us, while others might inadvertently feed our insecurities by magnifying them or defining us by those failings. Thus, Stoicism encourages introspection and self-reliance, first and foremost advising us to address our weaknesses privately before deciding whether to share them with a select trusted few. One might wonder, does this conflict with modern therapeutic wisdom that encourages openness? It is crucial to note that Stoicism does not discourage seeking professional help or confiding in a reliable friend or mentor. Rather, it underscores a strategic approach. Choose carefully whom you reveal your weaknesses to, ensuring that they are individuals or professionals who can offer real support or guidance. Broadcasting vulnerabilities to a broad audience, be it online or in large social circles, can dilute the potential benefits of empathy, overshadow the seriousness of the matter, or create a permanent narrative of victimhood in the eyes of the public. From a personal development standpoint, publicly dwelling on weaknesses can lead to self-labeling, a phenomenon where we start to define ourselves by our limitations rather than our possibilities. If we repeatedly announce "I'm terrible at public speaking" or "I have no willpower," we risk internalizing these statements further, entrenching them in our sense of self. The Stoic approach would have us quietly identify these limitations and work diligently to overcome them, seeking assistance if needed, but without blaring them to the world in a way that cements them as immovable traits. Practically speaking, refraining from talking about your weaknesses also provides the mental space to transform them into strengths. Instead of fixating on how others perceive those weaknesses, you place your attention on constructive action, practicing studying, and seeking targeted guidance. Over time, what began as a frailty can become an area of competence, perhaps even excellence, as long as you do the work. Then, should you choose to speak of it, you can share a story of overcoming adversity rather than a continuous lament of personal shortfall. In the end, this lesson is about prudence. Stoicism recognizes that words shape perceptions, both ours and others. By mindfully curating who learns of your vulnerabilities and how that information is presented, you maintain a stronger internal locus of control. Reduce the risk of external manipulation and focus on the tangible steps needed for self-improvement. It aligns seamlessly with a Stoic emphasis on acting wisely, remaining resilient, and addressing challenges from a place of empowered agency rather than public spectacle. Dreams and aspirations often stand as the brightest lights in our personal universe, guiding us toward growth and fulfillment. Yet they can also be the most delicate, susceptible to being snuffed out by others' doubts, envy, or indifference. The eighth Stoic key: nurture. Your aspirations in silence echo some of the logic behind not discussing future plans prematurely, but takes it a step further, advocating for the protection of our deepest ambitions from the corrosive effects of external skepticism or interference. To the Stoics, great aspirations should be treated as seeds planted in fertile soil. Initially, these seeds are fragile and require a nurturing environment free from harsh elements, disruptive foot traffic, or any number of dangers that could uproot them before they take hold. Publicizing them too soon is like planting seeds on a crowded sidewalk hoping they survive the trampling of passers-by. The emotional equivalent of that trampling might be unsolicited criticism, unsolicited praise that leads to complacency, or simply the draining effect of explaining your dreams to individuals who neither understand nor support them. In practical terms, imagine you have an innovative business idea or a novel you aspire to write. Both tasks require time, concentration, and the freedom to fail and iterate. Broadcasting your ambitions might lead to reactions that foster self-doubt. People might question your qualifications, cast doubts on market viability, or remind you of how many fail in similar pursuits. While some level of constructive critique can be helpful, an onslaught of negativity can dampen the fervor needed to push through the inevitable obstacle. By keeping your dreams somewhat private, you reserve your emotional energy for the actual endeavor, consulting only those mentors or confidants whose guidance you value. Moreover, silence about your aspirations also wards off the danger of conflating talk with accomplishment. Declaring grand ambitions can create a false sense of progress. This is a phenomenon psychologists sometimes term social reality. When we speak about a goal, our brains receive a small dose of satisfaction, almost as if we've already moved closer to completion. While encouragement from others can be motivating, premature announcements can diminish the internal drive that arises from an unfulfilled vision. In a Stoic framework, that internal drive is critical. It thrives on seeing a gap between one's current state and the envisioned future, and using that gap to fuel focused, resolute effort. Seneca and other Stoic writers would note that the most important transformations often happen quietly in the crucible of personal commitment. Whether you're training for a marathon or trying to learn a new language, the day-to-day grind, waking up early to run, setting aside time to study fuels genuine progress. External applause might come much later, if at all. By prioritizing silent nurturing of your goals, you cultivate a profound sense of integrity and resilience. The dream doesn't become subject to the volatile winds of public reaction. It remains firmly rooted in your conviction and discipline. This lesson doesn't deny the value of strategic communication. At times, you might seek a publishing agent for your novel or a business partner for your startup. But the Stoic approach emphasizes the timing and manner of disclosure. Only share what's necessary when it's necessary with the right people. Nurture your dreams in a controlled environment that allows them to flourish free from incessant evaluation or applause. By doing so, you safeguard your aspirations' purity, letting it grow from a place of true passion rather than the pursuit of others' validation. In the final key, value solitude Stoicism underscores the paradox that while we are inherently social creatures, we also need periods of quiet withdrawal to maintain psychological balance and cultivate wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, famously penned his meditations during solitary moments, reflecting on his responsibilities, personal shortcomings, and philosophical convictions. These private periods of introspection were crucial in helping him govern both his empire and himself. Solitude is not loneliness. Rather, it is the conscious choice to be alone with our thoughts, a space for self-dialogue and renewal. In a modern context, solitude can be challenging to attain. Most of us juggle work commitments, family obligations, social engagements, and the constant digital hum of emails, notifications, and status updates. Even quiet moments might be punctured by the pull of streaming services or the urge to scroll through social media feeds. Yet the Stoics argue that without meaningful alone time, we lose contact with our inner voice, the one that helps us sort through daily noise, process emotions, and align with our guiding principles. There are several ways solitude can foster Stoic virtues. First, it cultivates self-reliance. When we step away from the crowd, we are forced to rely on our own judgment and creativity. Instead of chasing external validation or direction, we learn to anchor ourselves in reasoned reflection. Second, solitude supports tranquility. The Stoics often spoke of ataraxia, a kind of untroubled state that emerges when we are not bombarded by external stimuli. Brief escapes from the collective bustle allow the mind to reset, shedding accumulated stresses and anxieties. Third, it encourages introspection. Spending time alone enables us to honestly assess our recent actions, identify emotional triggers, and see where our behaviors align or misalign with our higher aspirations. Practically valuing solitude might mean blocking out a portion of each day or week for deliberate isolation. That could be a morning meditation session, an evening walk without headphones, or a weekend retreat from digital devices. During these intervals, instead of filling the silence with entertainment or mental clutter, the goal is to observe our internal processes. We can journal, reflect on Stoic passages, or simply pay attention to our breath. Over time, this practice of conscious solitude becomes a wellspring of clarity, resilience, and creativity. In many cultures, solitude can be misconstrued as antisocial behavior or a sign of depression. Stoicism, however, frames it as a purposeful state of renewal, one that complements rather than replaces healthy social interaction. The aim is balance, engaging with family, friends, and community in a way that is meaningful and generative, yet also maintaining a private sanctuary where we can return to recalibrate our values and sense of self. When integrated into daily life, solitude offers a powerful defense against overwhelm. We face so many demands that failing to pause can lead to burnout, compromised decision-making, and a fragmented self. The Stoic emphasis on solitude is a reminder that we must occasionally step outside the fray in order to engage it more effectively afterward. By protecting these intervals of sacred silence, we preserve our mental and moral vigor, ensuring we can meet our obligations and aspirations without losing ourselves in the process. With the full suite of 9 Stoic keys now on the table, we can see how they interlink to form a holistic approach to communication, self-management, and social engagement. From not oversharing challenges and weaknesses to remaining humble about achievements and good deeds, each principle encourages the building of a quietly confident inner life. By steering clear of gossip and mindless chatter, we protect the integrity of our relationships and avoid stirring unnecessary conflict. By keeping certain plans and aspirations under wraps, we preserve our focus and shield ourselves from premature judgment. And by seeking solitude, we strengthen our capacity for introspection, ensuring that the path we tread is genuinely ours. When considered together, these keys reflect the Stoic conviction that what we do not say can be just as significant as what we do say. In modern culture, where expression often equates to identity, the Stoics offer a contrarian viewpoint. Identity is shaped more reliably by consistent action and private thought than by public discourse. This perspective might feel counterintuitive at first, especially in an era that prizes personal branding and oversharing as methods for forging connections. But by placing more emphasis on thoughtful discretion, we cultivate a deeper sense of individual agency and moral responsibility. One way to integrate these keys into daily life is to develop a set of personal guidelines or triggers for self-reflection. For instance, the moment you feel tempted to complain about a difficulty, pause and ask, am I seeking empathy or solutions? If it's empathy, is this the best avenue for it? If it's solutions, am I speaking to the right person? Similarly, when you feel compelled to broadcast an achievement, ask, am I doing this to inspire or to boast? Or if you catch yourself about to share a secret or a weakness in a casual setting, question whether the potential gain in understanding is worth the potential cost in vulnerability. As we do this, we also need to remain vigilant about extremes. Stoicism does not advocate becoming mute or cut off from society. There is a balance between total silence and incessant self-exposure. The sweet spot often lies in curated communication speak. When it advances, virtue fosters genuine connection or solves a problem. Keep silent when it serves merely to inflate the ego, spread negativity, or dissipate your personal power. This balanced approach mirrors the middle path the Stoics champion, one that avoids the perils of excess in either direction. At times, you may find it challenging to adopt such discernment. Old habits die hard, and the urge to vent, seek praise, or share every fleeting thought can be powerful. The Stoics, being pragmatic, expected this. They believed in daily practice, reminding ourselves each morning or evening of the virtues we aim to embody and taking small, consistent steps to make them a reality. Over time, those repeated efforts accumulate into a transformed mindset. Eventually, we reach a point where the discipline of speech feels natural, even liberating rather than burdensome. It is also valuable to consider how these 9 Stoic keys align with broader themes in personal development. For instance, many spiritual traditions value periods of silence, whether through fasting from speech retreats or monastic living. Psychological research has shown that excessive ruminating on challenges can intensify stress and anxiety, while focusing on actionable solutions reduces distress. Similarly, the concept of privacy regarding personal goals and projects echoes studies that show how public announcements can undercut actual follow-through. These parallels reinforce the notion that Stoicism taps into universal truths about human cognition and emotional well-being, truths that have been reaffirmed across centuries and cultures. Moreover, the integrated application of these lessons can yield surprising benefits. As you consciously speak less about your hardships, you may discover a reservoir of resilience you did not realize you had. As you minimize gossip, you might find yourself surrounded by fewer dramas, enabling more genuine, uplifting interactions. By not constantly broadcasting your acts of kindness, you could experience a deeper satisfaction that comes from an intrinsically motivated life. Each time you refrain from publicly celebrating a success, you cultivate humility and remain focused on continual improvement. And in guarding your weaknesses and nurturing your aspirations silently, you allow yourself the unpressured room to grow at your own pace, free from the weight of external judgment. Some people worry that following Stoic guidelines for communication might render them invisible or underappreciated. In reality, many who adopt these practices experience an increase in self-respect and paradoxically garner more genuine respect from others. People tend to notice consistent kindness and competence, even if not trumpeted. Over time, your reputation as a person of substance and reliability can flourish precisely because you stand out in a world often dominated by empty talk. This quiet form of influence may take longer to build, but it is far more stable. In professional environments, these principles can also safeguard credibility. Leaders who do not boast excessively about their accomplishments but deliver steady, tangible results often earn deeper trust from their teams. Colleagues who avoid gossip and focus on solutions become go-to problem solvers. Employees who keep their career moves discreet until they are certain of their direction often sidestep unnecessary office politics. Thus, Stoic wisdom can offer a competitive edge in modern workplaces, aligning personal virtues with professional success in a manner that fosters long-term respect rather than short-lived applause. Yet it's essential to remain aware of your specific context. If your profession involves public relations, sales, or community leadership, strategic communication is a job requirement. The Stoic path does not imply that you sabotage your responsibilities by refusing to speak. Rather, it suggests using speech consciously, ensuring that when words leave your mouth or keyboard, they are grounded in honesty, necessity, and genuine service, rather than self-serving or impulsive chatter. This heightened mindfulness can make you more effective in any role where communication is key, because your words carry the weight of authenticity. As we arrive at the conclusion of our expanded Stoic journey, it helps to revisit the overarching theme by judiciously managing what we say, and when and how we say it, we gain a profound level of control over our lives. Words can either fortify or erode our internal state. They can elevate or diminish our social bonds. The 9 Stoic keys we have explored serve as a blueprint for harnessing the constructive potential of words, while minimizing their capacity to scatter our focus or invite trouble. They guide us away from knee-jerk reactions and toward deliberate, purposeful communication, aligned with personal growth and virtue. In summation, don't talk about your challenges. Direct energy toward solutions instead of repetitive complaints. Don't reveal your secrets. Safeguard personal vulnerabilities, sharing them selectively with those you trust. Don't talk about your achievements. Let success speak for itself, maintaining humility and avoiding pride. Keep your next moves a mystery. Protect nascent plans from premature scrutiny or disruption, focusing on action. Don't talk about others. Avoid gossip. Refrain from idle speculation and slander, focusing instead on self-improvement. Don't talk about your good deeds. Preserve the purity of altruistic acts by avoiding the pursuit of applause. Don't speak of your weaknesses. Work on self-improvement privately, preventing exploitation and negative labeling. Nurture your aspirations in silence. Shield your loftiest goals from cynicism and complacency, ensuring they remain fueled by inner conviction. Value solitude. Create intentional space for reflection, recharging and aligning with your deeper purpose. Each of these keys is undergirded by the Stoic commitment to self-mastery. The conviction that genuine freedom and contentment come from regulating what is within our power, our judgments, desires, impulses, and speech, while accepting what lies beyond our control. In exercising disciplined speech, we cut off many sources of unnecessary stress and distraction. We also grant ourselves the serenity to handle life's inevitable challenges from a place of composure rather than rashness. Finally, it bears repeating that Stoicism is a practice, not a dogma. You are likely to slip up, releasing a complaint in a moment of frustration, carelessly sharing a personal detail, or boasting about an accomplishment when the praise feels too tempting to resist. The Stoic approach is to notice these lapses, reflect on them, and then realign with your principles. Over time, consistent effort will reshape your habits, creating a quiet yet potent transformation in how you communicate and how you experience both triumphs and setbacks. In a broader sense, These 9 keys encapsulate a worldview where human dignity flourishes through moral clarity, resilience, and mindful engagement with society. They aim to free us from the tyranny of external opinion, whether that be condemnation or praise, and remind us that the deepest sense of fulfillment arises from within. By integrating these Stoic lessons into your daily life, you stand to cultivate a grounded, unshakable confidence. You will find that you are not just outsmarting everybody else in a superficial sense, but transcending the incessant comparison and clamor that so often depletes our spirit. Instead, you're forging a path of genuine self-respect and unwavering tranquility, hallmarks of the Stoic way. From my personal journey applying these 9 Stoic keys, I've discovered something remarkable. The less I say, the more powerful I feel. By thoughtfully choosing when to speak or remain silent, I've witnessed improvements not only in my mental clarity, but also in my relationships, career, and overall happiness. Each time I replaced unnecessary words with purposeful actions, life became simpler, richer, and more fulfilling. I believe the true magic of Stoicism lies in its practicality. It offers real, everyday tools for overcoming stress, avoiding drama, and becoming quietly influential. Now I'd love to hear your experiences. Have you ever practiced the art of intentional silence or found power in keeping certain goals private? Which of these 9 keys resonated most deeply with you? Drop your thought stories or questions in the comments below, and let's create a vibrant discussion where we all benefit from shared insights and perspectives. Thanks for watching. Stay inspired and keep embracing the wisdom that leads to a truly extraordinary life.